All right. So here we are. New blog post from Bungie, Destiny 2. And we're gonna go ahead and just read this verbatim and see what's coming in the new expansion. So we got the Season 20 weapon tuning preview. I have not read this yet, so again, we're just gonna go word for word and kind of give our thoughts as we read along. Okay, by Chris Proctor, Senior Lead Design. G'day, Guardians. We're back with another weapons preview. In the Season 19 mid-season balance update, we brought in several changes to address weapons and PvP. In Season 20, with a new campaign and raid coming, we focus on a substantial pass over heavy weapons for PvE and adding subclass verbs to several exotic weapons, tying in with the new anti-champion capabilities with these verbs now have. Whatever. Between the new weapon changes and everything else that's new or changing in Lightfall, we're looking forward to seeing what combinations players settle for the Legendary campaign and the Day 1 raid. Weapon archetypes. When playing on console, your reticle will turn red when it's over an enemy that's inside your weapon's effective range. This is very useful aid that we've wanted to be global for a while. So we've enabled this on PC in a future season. We'll be making the color customizable, similar to the base reticle colors. So PC players, awesome, good for you. Linear fusions. You probably saw this one coming. Linear fusion rifles outperform other heavy weapons for boss damage by a wide margin and have had plenty of time in the sun. Yes, they have. They are fucking insane. We're bringing them down enough for other options to compete. At the same time, exotic heavy linear fusion rifles don't do enough to justify using one over a legendary. So they're not affected by this nerf. Okay, so Sleeper is going to be fucking cracked. Reduce damage versus champions, mini bosses, and vehicles by 15%. Sleeper Simulant and Queensbreaker are unaffected. Sleeper fans, this is not a drill. Okay. Guys, Sleeper, bring it out. It's going to be lit. Machine guns. Machine guns have been buffed a few times over the past year or so, but only in PvE. We've opted to increase their base damage a little, which makes them more forgiving to use in PvP. The buff also applies across the board in PvE. PvP damage is typically the base, and PvE has multipliers on top of that. We're also substantially increasing machine gun reserves, giving them a higher uptime, particularly useful in hard content. Increased damage by 10% with the following effects on TTK against Guardians with Tier 6 resilience. High impact frames reduced from 0.67 to 0.50. Rapid fires reduced from 0.53 to 0.47. Adaptives unchanged. That's fair. And then increased ammo reserves by 50% at 0 inventory stat and 20% at 100 inventory stat. Note, inventory stat is a 0 to 100 value behind the scenes. This is presented as the actual number of rounds in game, but you can take this to mean that low reserve machine guns get a big boost while large reserve machine guns get a smaller boost. Okay, so overall machine guns are getting a pretty decent buff, especially in PvP. I mean, high impacts, that half a second TTK. Rapid fires 0.4 under half. I mean, I don't know if they're gonna be better than rockets, but still. But this, for PvE shit, is pretty fucking nice. High impact frames are gonna have a fuck ton more ammo reserves. Anyways, continue. We got heavy grenade launchers. Heavy grenade launchers haven't been touched in a while and are substantially below some other heavy options for damage. On top of that, grenade launcher projectiles have travel time, a ballistic arc, and relatively small blast radius, so it can be hard to constantly land shots on a moving target, and they may hit fewer targets with the explosion than you'd expect. With this change, heavy grenade launchers should be significantly more useful in PvE and easier to use both in PvE and PvP. Here are the changes. Increased damage versus champions, mini-bosses, bosses, and vehicles by 20%. And minors by 40%. So linears are dropping 15%. And grenade launchers are increasing by 20%. So that's interesting. Improved projectile collision, making it slightly easier to land hits. That's nice. Increased blast radius by 1 meter, like across the board on all of them. Parasite is unaffected. It does huge damage already. Yes, it does. Shotguns. The new shotgun reticles show the correct spread pattern, but its siphoning from the size of the reticle wasn't affected by the current spread angle, which will change if you jump or blah, 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 blah. This change should make the reticle accurate in most ways at 85-degree field of view. A change to make this accurate for all FOV's options will come in a future season. Oh, that's interesting. So shotgun reticles now change in size proportional to the spread angle. Related note, the Legend of Accura's hipfire reticle is now a bit more representative of its very large spread angle. Okay, so our shotgun reticles in hipfire are going to have, they're going to accurately more represent the spread. Kinetic weapons, kinetic slot weapons have almost done 5%. Hold the fuck. Kinetic weapons have always done 5% more damage versus unshielded targets in PvE. This meant that kinetic slot stasis weapons were straight up better with extra functionality and no downside. We wanted to give players more of a reason to run kinetic damage type weapons. So instead of a blanket kinetic slot damage boost, we're switching to a kinetic damage type boost based on whether your kinetic weapon uses primary or special ammo, and increase the bonus significantly. So kinetic primary weapon damage multiplier has been increased from 1.05 to 1.1. Kinetic special damage multiplier has been increased from 1.05 to 1.15. Kinetic slot stasis weapons no longer have the 5% damage bonus to unshielded targets in PvE. There's also a kinetic damage type perk coming in Lightfall. Wow, it's a lot of reading. But, okay, so it's looking like they want us to use kinetic primaries versus stasis, or because stasis primaries have more utility, i.e. headstone and things like that, and kinetic doesn't have anything like that, they want to give you a reason to use a kinetic versus a stasis, or make it at least situational. Exotics. Just like many players, we wanted exotic weapons to have a strong theming around their damage type to use the real subclass 3.0 verbs. Lightfall's longer development and playtest cycle gave us the opportunity to add subclass verbs to many of the top picks. Our goal with adding subclass 3.0 verbs is to grant these weapons additional functionality and let them tie into subclass builds in a more meaningful way. I don't know why I'm moving my hands like this. I'm Italian. In most cases, this is also or is paired with a hefty buff. Okay, so exotic buffs incoming. The Queensbreaker blinding effect was underwhelming for a heavy weapon, so we changed how that's deployed. Note that Queenbreaker was also not affected by the global damage reduction of linears either, making it substantially stronger by comparison. Shot now changed to nearby enemies and uses Arc 3.0 blind. I mean, Gambit, anyone? Runeus Effigy feels very void-y, and slamming the transmutation sphere was an obvious place to put an effect. Okay, so the sphere is now going to suppress. Interesting, but I don't know who's all using that weapon. If anybody's using it now, I mean, good for you, but sheesh. The Leviathan's Breath buff from a few seasons back inadvertently reduced the PvP damage enough that it could no longer one-hit kill players in their super with a headshot. We fixed that. But we also added Volatile and increased the damage versus champions substantially to highlight as an anti-champion role. Now applies Volatile on a perfect draw impact, increases damage from 396 to 442. This allows it to once again one-hit all supers in PvP. Increase the damage versus champions by 30%. So, Leviathan's Breath is a really cool weapon. I don't know if this is going to make it an exotic that people are going to want to use, especially over something like as versatile as Arbalest for an anti-champion. But it could be good. It sounds good on paper, but it has so little reserves. And maybe this 30% damage to champions will make it so that it fucking damn near one hits them. And that would be great. But if it's not doing anything like that, I just don't see that bow bumping up at all. 1K was briefly a top pick in Season 14, but has been eclipsed by other options since then. True. We wanted to lean even more into a chain of solar explosion by adding Scorch, and with the global heavy weapon changes, it's also a strong option. If you have Ember of Ashes equipped, landing a full burst on a single target will trigger an ignition immediately. Exact results may vary depending on whether the other players are also scorching the target. Each explosion now applies 10 plus 5 with Ember of Ashes Scorch stacks. Alright, I don't have 1K. Never have. Probably never will. Anyway, Sunshot was a top candidate for applying solar subclass verbs, and the explosions are the clear place to add to. Explosions on kill now apply 10 plus 5 Scorch stacks. Okay, Sunshot. I fucking love that gun. Now it's going to be doing Scorch stacks. That thing literally just passed the King's Fall hand cannon, in my opinion. Polaris Lance always had a burn effect, so it was an obvious change to switch this to Scorch. Perfect Fifth Shot now applies 40 plus 20 Scorch stacks instead of a custom burn. Not sure. I mean, that might be alright. Two-Tailed Fox has had tough competition as a heavy exotic weapon, but now it's the only weapon that can apply subclass verbs from multiple damage types without extra steps, which is pretty fucking cool that they're doing that. So the Solar Rocket now applies 60 plus 30 Scorch stacks instead of burn. The Void Rocket already applies suppress, and the Catalyst completes the trifecta. The Catalyst completes the trifecta. Wait. I don't have a Two-Tailed Fox on me. Does it have... Hold on. Hold the phone. Everybody just calm down. I spelled that wrong. Is it really not gonna pop up? Why? You're embarrassing me. Oh, is it not gonna load? Let me just type 2. See if it searches. If not, then we're going to get back to this. But completes the trifecta. So is it going to blind as well? There it is. So I don't think it's out yet. Or maybe it is. So it gets reloaded in invent. Maybe they're going to be updating it. I'll have to look more in game on that. Anyways. Yeah, because it says completes the trifecta, which means that, and the Catalyst completes the trifecta. So it's got to do blind. I'm assuming it's going to do blinding as well. Anyways, Prometheus Lens has utility with its Solar 3.0 rework, but we wanted to give it something more spectacular on kills. Added the incandescence perk to the catalyst. That's pretty dope. I'm not gonna lie. That's pretty dope. Grand Overture's latest buff increased damage by 50%, brought it up plenty. It just needs its blind updated to tie into Arc 3.0. Switched the catalyst to use Arc Blind. Hipfire reticles. Oh my god. Oh, we're almost there. We're starting to experiment with the hipfire weapon reticle, conveying more information, and use the Manticore as a test bed for this. You can expect to see more weapon type or exotic weapon functionality showing up in hipfire reticles in Season 21 and beyond. Added a reticle element to the Manticore showing current stacks of anti-gravity repulsor. Perks. With Strand coming into the game, along with the new Strand weapon damage perk, we've updated a couple of older perks. So Omnosis now works with Strand. Cool. Elemental Capacitor now has the following effect. See, and I was wondering about this. Like, if they're bringing Strand in, what is Elemental Capacitor going to be? So it gives plus 20 airborne effectiveness, plus 25 with the enhanced perk. So they're really tying into this whole Strand being the in-air class, the in-air accurate class, the floaty boy shoot, kill shit while you're in the air class, which I get it. That's cool. All right. Rewind rounds will be appearing on more weapons in Lightfall, but was custom built to only work for the Vaulted Glass weapon set. We've tweaked it to be more general purpose. So, rebuilt to work on non-vault weapons. They're not going to say what the rebuilt was, but okay. Eager Edge has some bugs that needed addressing in a previous release. We've now taken the time to do a more complete rework, which also let us reduce or remove most of the restrictions that were in place. No longer deactivates when moving faster than 35 meters per second. Deactivates correctly after a melee swing. Reduced the base lunge distance buff from 2 to 1.8, I'm assuming meters. Reduced airborne lunge difference penalty from 25% to 20%. The enhanced perk now increases lunge distance slightly back up to 2. Alright. Blinding grenades on grenade launchers don't do arc damage, so it's not appropriate for them to trigger Arc 3.0 blind effects. We didn't feel the need to change their disorienting effect though, so we've updated the name to overlap less. Renamed blinding grenades to disorienting grenades. So they're going to do the same thing, they're just changing the name. Vice Stinger is one of the most desirable origin traits in the game, particularly on linear fusions, to the point where it makes it hard for non-viced weapons to compete. It needed some adjustment. With this change, it's still valuable, but more in line with other origin traits. This was typically a full reload when the perk activated. Now it reloads 25%. So it's still nice, but looks like we're not going to be getting those full refills back. And linears are getting a nerf, so if I was you guys, I would break out the sleepers anyways. This is it, the future. We've already had a work on Season 21 and 22. Oh. And some of the changes we're making include adding a full auto melee accessibility setting, which will apply to all forms of melee, a pass over weapon type, and exotic weapon hipfire reticles, including increasing how visibly they change even at high FOV, adding features like charge meters to exotic perk counters. We've also got balance changes in the works, but it's a little too early to get into them. We'll have more information to share post Lightfall. Okay, guys, that was your blog post for today. Chris Proctor, Senior Lead Design. Good for him. Good for him. I think there's a lot of good things in here. I do think linears needed to be hit a little bit, so them hitting linears makes sense. I get it. Sleeper being unaffected, I think, is going to be fantastic. I love that gun. I hate not being able to use it. Machine guns, I think, overall is a really good buff in PvP and PvE. Grenade launchers, we're gonna have to wait and see. I don't know if this 20% is going to be worth it. Maybe on something like Anarchy where you're doing DOT, so an additional 20%, that, I mean, maybe. Shotgun is I'm kind of indifferent on. I think the kinetic thing is interesting. I don't know how great it's going to be, if it's really going to sway people to not use stasis weapons. And here's the other thing. We might be getting strand primaries as well. So, well, I don't know. We'll just have to play it out. And overview of the exotics, I think Runius, I still don't see people using it. Same thing with Leviathan's Breath, unless this 30% buff causes you to damn near one-shot unstoppables, because that's all it really is meant for. I mean, yeah, 30% damage to all champions is great, but it's got inherent unstoppable. So unless it's like taking on GMs, it's taking their health down to like 1 bar, I just don't see this being useful. 1k, I don't care. Sunshot, I think this is going to be great for ad clear. I think it's going to be fucking fantastic. Polaris Lance has potential. I think Two-Tailed Fox could be interesting, especially if it does grant Scorch, Suppression, and adds Blind or something with the Catalyst. I can see that being cool. Perks, I think Elemental Capacitor. I've always thought Elemental Capacitor was a fantastic perk, and I think it's just gonna be better. So now if you have any type of Elemental Capacitor hand cannon, like, I don't think I have any anymore, to be honest with you, but any one of them is going to be, I mean, on a shotgun, maybe not, but like getting that plus 25 airborne here to pump you up to 28. I don't know. I think it has potential. The Eager Edge thing, I'm indifferent about. Blinding Grenades getting renamed. That's dope. And the future. So that's it. Everybody, I hope you have a wonderful day. I will try to get this out as quickly as possible. I am Average Al, and I am out.